Alright, welcome to my Resident Evil 2 knife only guided walkthrough. The remake is coming out in a few months, so before that it's proper to revisit the original version. So let me guide you through this game and explain in detail how you can make it through using the knife as your only weapon. This will mostly be a complete playthrough, including cutscenes, with only a few cuts here and there, or where I sped up the footage, like the sections where you play as Sherry, time spent in save rooms, or where you need to backtrack. The version I'm using is the PS1 version, so there is no higher difficulty than normal mode, and we're going to follow the canon route. So we'll be starting with Claire's A scenario. Let's go!
A bizarre incident occurred in the outskirts of an American suburb called Raccoon City. It was later revealed that the terrible disaster had been caused by the T virus, a mutagenic toxin created by the international enterprise Umbrella Incorporated for use in bioweapon experiments. The Raccoon City Police Department's Special STARS unit immediately began investigation in the affair. The case was apparently closed, thanks to the efforts of STARS members Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. But the Umbrella Corporation's experiments were far from finished.
Finally here.
That guy's a maniac. Why'd he bite me?
Hello? Is anyone here? Hello? Hello? Look, I'm sorry I bothered you, okay? Just don't come any closer. Are you listening? Wait! Don't shoot!
Get down! We can't stay out here. Head to the police station. It'll be a lot safer. There! Buckle up.
Okay. What's going on? I arrived in town, and the whole place went insane.
The radio's out.
You're a cop, right?
Yeah, first day on the job. Great, huh? Name's Leon Kennedy. Nice to meet you.
Mine's Claire. Claire Redfield. I came to find my brother, Chris.
Hey, did you open the glove box?
Sure. There's a gun inside.
Better take it with you.
You okay?
Still in one piece.
Hey! That maniac's gonna whip us! Head to the station. I'll meet you there.
Okay.
Alright, if you've seen my Silent Hill 3 knife-only walkthrough, then you pretty much know what to expect. This is for the most part a pacifist run. The only enemies that we need to kill are the bosses, meaning that it's not merely about surviving with a very low damage output, it's mostly about learning how to avoid the enemies, how to get past them taking only minimal damage. Just like in Silent Hill, there is no way to regain your health without using the limited amount of healing items. As you know, those cannot be farmed. So in essence, there is a maximum amount of hits that you can take in this game. And each healing item you skip decreases that amount. So again, this walkthrough is mainly about learning how to avoid damage. And that means that there is a lot to remember, as different sections require a different approach. Now, to be clear, I'm not a speedrunner, I'm not even an expert in this game. I make several mistakes in this playthrough. But remember that you can learn from other people's mistakes, so I will try to explain how I could have avoided taking damage whenever I do take a hit. Although, for some parts I pretty much intentionally take a hit, or there is RNG involved anyway. Okay, so here for example, there are zombies behind the gate, and when you reach a specific point in the alleyway, a zombie will break through the gate. However, you can avoid taking damage if you slowly inch your way backwards to that specific location and then immediately run towards the zombie and push yourself past him and stick to the left side to avoid the zombie near the door. So those are the kind of tactics that you can expect to hear throughout this guide, for most of the sections in this game. There are very few instances where I actually use the knife against regular enemies. But over here is one of those cases. However, I do not attack the female zombie to kill her, but just to knock her over, because that is all that is necessary to make it past her. After all, the knife does so little damage that it's simply not even worth it to kill regular enemies with it. There is no place in the game where it is absolutely necessary. The bosses being the exception, of course. Although, actually here in the bus, I do kill the crawling zombie, but simply by letting her grab me, and Claire will then simply kick her head off. The other zombie is also in the way, but that one I can take down with the knife by stabbing him in the legs. But the strange thing is that it takes either 3, 4 or 5 hits for a zombie to fall down. So you cannot just keep stabbing, because then you will get grabbed. So you need to keep enough distance by moving backwards. Remember that zombies are extremely slow. They more or less move at the same speed as you walking backwards. Later on I will show you this again in a bit more detail. But as I said before, I hardly ever even use the knife against regular enemies. Over here in the back is where you find the first green herb that can be found. Obviously it's best to pick up as many healing items as possible, but you also need to keep in mind that if you take too many hits when trying to get them, well, that kinda negates their purpose anyway. So if it involves taking unnecessary risks, then it's best to just leave it where it is. Alright, here we are at the police station that is more like a medieval castle. I wonder how the police even functions with all the puzzles and stuff. Who even made it like that and why?
Hang in there. Are you the only officer left in the building?
Who are you?
Claire Redfield. I'm looking for my brother Chris.
We lost contact with him over 10 days ago. Chris, Jill, Barry. Every last STARS team member has disappeared. We should have listened to them.
What happened?
About 2 months ago, there was this incident involving these zombie-like creatures in a mansion located in the outskirts of this city. Chris and the other STARS members discovered that Umbrella was behind everything, at the risk of their own lives. But no one believed them.
Are you okay?
Don't worry about me. Just rescue the survivors in the other rooms. Here, take this key card. You should be able to unlock the doors in the hall with this. Now go.
But...
Just go.
Okay. Just hang in there. I'll be back soon.
Alright, so now we can unlock the doors, and here we also encounter the first typewriter. It's definitely not a bad idea to save your game often, unless you care about getting a high rank, but I could care less about that. So it's basically just something to fall back on. If you happen to take too much damage at some point, wasting too many healing items, you can reload and try again. Okay, so how about what route to take through the police station? Well, in principle there is, well, more or less at least, not really many different routes you can take. It's simply that on your first playthrough, you tend to wander around aimlessly, not knowing where to go. But on a knife-only playthrough, what you basically want to do is to do the least amount of backtracking possible. You want to spend the least amount of time in each area, because that means fewer chances of taking hits, and therefore that lessens the need for healing items. Now, I'm by no means a speedrunner, but more or less you need to approach this playthrough in a similar way to a speedrun. So optimizing your movement, so to speak, get as fast and as effective through an area as possible. In fact, a lot of areas are easiest to get through without taking damage if you act without hesitation. So relatively often it's actually not a matter of taking it slowly. And the reason for this is that you can learn exactly where enemies are the moment you enter a new area. So that makes them predictable, and it means that you can learn how to move through an area safely. But as soon as the enemies start moving around, things become less predictable and you may need to improvise. Now of course this does not always apply. Sometimes enemies are designed to be in your way, and you do need to lure them to a certain spot in order to get past them. So here I leave the green herb behind because it's simply too risky. You need to come back here anyway, and on the way back it's relatively safe to pick it up. And we need to skip the room with the ruby for a while, because it's only later on that we get the lighter. Unlike Leon, we don't start with that item. Okay, the way to the stairs is one of those examples where you simply need to run without hesitation. The enemy placement starts with a clear path, so it's simply a matter of running towards the opposite wall and then straight for the stairs. Again, this is not always the case of course, but in essence the path you take through an area is based on the enemy's starting position. After all, that is something that you can learn, because it's always the same. But the movement of enemies have an RNG factor to them, and their starting positions do not. Okay, let's speed things up a bit. I will do that a lot in fact for areas without enemies, just to keep this guide concise and to the point. And in case you don't care about the cutscenes, remember that pressing right on the keyboard skips the video ahead 10 seconds at a time. So, after we have the ruby, we need to get the unicorn medallion, and then we need to head all the way back to the starting area for the first key. And then all the way back again. So you will at least get familiar with these couple of sections. Also, a major benefit of a knife-only playthrough is that you can carry a lot of items. Because usually you carry a pistol, a crossbow and a grenade launcher, including ammunition. So on a normal playthrough, you are pretty much forced to constantly backtrack and going from item box to item box. So in that sense, a knife-only playthrough in and of itself means that you can get through the game in about 2 hours or so, in-game time at least. So the liquor is facing away from me this time, so now I can pick up the green herb, and then you need to run as fast as possible towards the door, because liquors are very quick and can do quite a bit of damage. Although damage calculation is kind of strange in this game. Or rather, it's either inconsistent or it's based on rules that are quite unclear. Because the same hits don't always result in the same amount of damage. In fact, there is one point in this playthrough where I take 3 hits in a row and my life is still green. And other times you are in red before you even know it. Okay, so there are different ways to get past lickers, and you will see me do it in different ways. But the annoying thing about this one is that he's not visible. So when I realize he's not coming towards me, I just choose to make a run for it. But whenever they are clearly visible, something to keep in mind is that if you stand still or approach them slowly, they have a tendency to slowly approach you, and then right before they are about to attack, they will pause for a second. So that pause is your cue to run past them. Unfortunately, a recurring problem, or perhaps I should say a recurring enemy in this game, is the camera itself. Especially during boss fights, but really all throughout the game. Even though I would say that my Silent Hill 3 knife-only playthrough was more difficult than this one, at least you have a free moving camera, which makes it much easier to get past enemies and to, see what the hell you are even doing. This game is not like that. The camera itself is your biggest enemy. That's something you can pretty much count on.
Help me!
Alright, there we have the first appearance of Sherry. So let's use this wide hallway with a single zombie in it to demonstrate how to fight with a knife again. When you are in weapon stance and press down when pressing R1, you will step downwards. Always attack like this, because it's the fastest animation, meaning your fastest way to attack. So let the zombie approach and after 2 steps, walk backwards to prevent getting grabbed. And repeat this until he falls down. It either takes 3, 4 or 5 hits. And I don't know what determines the exact amount. So just be aware of this. But stepping down is not because you want to hit the legs, it's because you can stab faster that way. So it also applies to boss fights.
Leon!
Claire, you made it!
Yeah. Have you seen a little girl around here?
Yeah, you just missed her. Who is she?
I don't know. But it's too dangerous for her to stay here alone. Leon, I'll go look for her. You go and find us a way out of here.
Of course. But before I forget, here's a radio. That way we can keep in touch if something comes up.
So as I said before, you can carry a lot of stuff when a knife is your only weapon. So we might as well pick up one of the stones that we need later on in the game. And of course a red herb. Technically I could have also picked up the crank in the room where the liquor was. But we need to get back there anyway, after we pick up the lighter and the diamond key. So that doesn't really make any difference. Okay, so here I'm going to make a mistake. Because I should have taken the emergency ladder down and back up again to reset the enemy positions. But I didn't. I did first wait until the second zombie was in the corner, and that was good. But there are 2 more on the right side. And the thing is that their starting position is such that if you run straight from the ladder to the door, There are two gaps for both enemies that you can easily run in between. But since I didn't do that, I got stuck and took a hit. Technically, you could also stick to one side and hope that the zombie will do the same, and then try to run past him. But due to the camera angle, it's just really hard to see if there's even enough space between a zombie and a wall. So that's why knowing how to act based on the enemy's starting positions is such an effective strategy. Because then you know almost exactly what to expect. You might as well leave the lighter on the bench for now, because we need to go through this room later on anyway. And I suppose I should have saved the game. After all, ink ribbons may be limited, but at almost every typewriter you can find 2 of those. So you can save the game quite a lot actually. So now we need to collect the valve so that we can use it to gain access to the room on the right side of the crashed helicopter. You don't have to worry about the birds in the hallway. If you just keep running and don't stop for anything, you basically have nothing to worry about. When you get down the stairs, make a wide turn to let the zombies walk a bit forward, and then you just need to stick to the right wall to avoid all 4 of them. On the way back, wait for the first zombie to move left, and then you need to stick to the right wall again. Alright, here you notice a cut, because I actually forgot to use the valve. So I went all the way to the other side, only to discover that the fire was still there. I've said this in other playthroughs, there's a reason why I don't do speedruns. There's always the inevitable point where I forget something. Usually multiple times per playthrough. So over here we find the diamond key. So now we have that one, together with the lighter, we can collect everything on the first floor on the left side of the police station. Meaning that we don't have to return there again. So we're going to take the emergency ladder down, move past the liquor again, and this time we enter the final room for which the spade key need to be used to get the crank, and then use the lighter to get the second ruby. And then we need to use the diamond key to get the bomb and the detonator. Of course, don't forget to put the valve inside the item box, because we only need it again about halfway through the game. Okay, this time when I wait to see if the liquor is moving towards the corner, he is precisely doing that. So when I run past him, he does a jump attack. However, that goes in a straight line, so being this close, I'm almost immediately outside of that hitbox. When you leave this room, the liquor will fall down from the ceiling again, so if you run without hesitation, there is no chance of him attacking you. And of course, in the next section, now we have the lighter, it's time to collect the second ruby. Alright, the upcoming room is kind of a clusterfuck. 3 zombies close together and a 4th one to the right. Now if you wait a second or so, you might make it to the locker where the plastic explosives are, but you are almost guaranteed to take a hit before you reach the other door. It may not be impossible to avoid damage in this room, but it is unlikely that you will. So what matters most is that you don't get gangbanged before you at least get to the second door. After all, you don't want to get stuck. Of course, the good thing is that when you get grabbed, you will push a zombie away, and that can also knock other zombies over. Okay, now we encounter the police officer from before, but this time he turns into a zombie. And as soon as you get control back, he is already walking towards you. So keep pressing down on the D-pad, so you immediately walk backwards to stay out of his reach, and then you can use the layout of the room, and of course the fact that zombies are so slow, to get away from him long enough to get to the detonator. Alright, remember that I took a hit on the upper floor and that I said I could have prevented it by going down the ladder and up again to reset the enemies? Well, as you can see this time, if you immediately run towards the door, there is a clear gap on the left side of the first zombie, and for the second one, just press up against the wall. So again, a clear example of how useful it is to know what the enemy's starting positions are. Okay, so far so good. That wasn't so hard, but next episode we're going to have our first boss fight after we finish the rest of the police station. So that's when we need to actually kill a powerful enemy with just a knife. And we'll be meeting Sherry, of course. So please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I hope to see you back in the next episode.